I feel like I'm getting hammered.
Caitlin Clark spent last season facing tough fouls, relentless defense, and opponents who tried to overpower her. But those days are behind her. The Indiana Fever have built a strong roster with not one, not two, but 3 defensive anchors who won't let that happen anymore.
So the Indiana Fever have got their enforcer. They have got their enforcer for Caitlin Clark. And I'm not gonna lie, like, when it comes to Caitlin Clark and their enforcer, last year everyone was talking about the median enforcer.
Tasha Howard, Sophie Cunningham, and DeWanna Bonner are 3 veteran stars known for their toughness and fearless style of play. If Clark's opponents thought they could keep challenging her with aggressive defense and rough tactics, they're in for a surprise. The message is clear. If you go after Clark, you'll have to face them first.
The closest thing they had was Erica Wheeler. That was the closest thing they had for someone to defend Caitlin Clark, was Erica freaking Wheeler. Maybe Tammy, but Caitlin Clark was getting hit a lot. She was getting hit a lot early and they needed their Charles Oakley.
This move isn't just about adding talent. It's about making a statement. The Fever aren't just here to compete, they're here to take over. With these key additions, they've built a team that can play fast, play tough, and most importantly, support their star player. Clark's toughest challengers have been put on notice. So, how will these 3 game changers elevate the Fever into one of the WNBA's most formidable teams? Let's break it down.
Sometimes you need one of those players on your team. You need one of those enforcers. Every good player, by the way. Every good player, every good team that is a super duper star. Most of the time have enforcer type players.
Imagine this. Caitlin Clark, the most electrifying rookie the WNBA has seen in years, steps onto the court for her debut season. The crowd is buzzing, fans are on the edge of their seats, and everyone is expecting her to put on a show. But instead of a smooth introduction to the league, she faces relentless pressure, hard fouls, excessive contact, and a level of physicality that feels more like a statement than just defense. What was really going on?
That's all I see. They try so long to get respect for women's basketball, and then they treat it like a junior high school girl's locker room. Junior high school girl antics on the court.
Let's break it down. This wasn't just the usual rookie treatment. Clark faced a level of physicality that went beyond standard competition. She dealt with constant hard fouls, unnecessary body checks, and contact that had no place in the game. At times, it felt less like basketball and more like a battle. But here's where it gets shocking. Clark wasn't just another rookie adjusting to the league's toughness. She was being targeted. The numbers don't lie. An overwhelming 177% of all flagrant fouls in the WNBA last season were committed against her. That's not just tough defense. It's clear evidence that opponents were making a point to challenge her in a way few others have experienced.
Now, what little girl wants to grow up and play in a league where you're targeted like that? How do you sit here and profess and demand that everyone take women's sports seriously when you can't even take it seriously enough to not act like a junior high queen on the court? It's stupid. That's so dumb. It looks like a soap opera.
And leading the charge? None other than the Chicago Sky. A jaw-dropping 80% of those flagrant fouls against Clark came from them. This wasn't just physical defense. It was a targeted approach to disrupt her game. The message was clear. Teams weren't just trying to stop her, they were trying to send a statement. But with the Fever's new roster, that strategy won't fly anymore.
Clark! Hammer!
Clark faced this treatment from just one team. That's no coincidence. It's a statement. They weren't simply defending her, they were sending a message. But why? Was it intimidation, frustration, or just an old-school tactic to slow down a rising star? Whatever the reason, one thing was clear. Clark's presence was shaking up the league and making some players uncomfortable.
We went up really strong a lot of times and we didn't get a lot of calls. And going back and looking at the film, I've seen a lot of calls that weren't made. I guess some people got a special whistle.
One of the most shocking moments came from Angel Reese herself. Picture this. Clark drives through the lane, eyes locked on the basket, when, bam! Reese sends her crashing to the floor. The arena falls silent. Fans hold their breath. Would she get up? The hit was so intense that even commentators began questioning if it had crossed the line. But Clark? She's built different. She dusted herself off, got back on her feet, and kept playing like nothing happened.
And Clark. I mean, that's clearly a foul, which was called. The question is, will they call it unnecessary? Kennedy Carter.
That's what sets Clark apart, her composure under pressure. While others debated whether the hits were excessive, she stayed locked in. Even after taking a blatant cheap shot from Kennedy Carter, Clark's response was simple. That's just not a basketball play! But she played through it. No complaints, no retaliation, just the kind of mental toughness that builds legends.
And Clark.
The signing of Natasha Howard represents a massive step forward for the Indiana Fever and their quest for a championship. In Howard, the Fever gain a 3-time WNBA champion, a Defensive Player of the Year, an All-Star, and a veteran with more than 300 games played.
But while Clark proved she could take the hits, the Fever front office knew they couldn't let her go through another season without protection. So, they made moves. Big ones. With the addition of some tough, battle-tested enforcers, Indiana is making it clear, no one is getting away with targeting Clark anymore. Who are these enforcers, and how will they transform the entire dynamic of the Indiana Fever? Let's dive in.
But all of that, and we haven't yet touched upon what Howard does best: defend. Howard was named Defensive Player of the Year in 2019 and has finished in the top 10 of the Defensive Player of the Year voting 3 times in her career. Howard has averaged at least 1 block and 1 steal per game in each of her last 7 seasons. And that versatility is really what makes her a weapon on defense.
Natasha Howard isn't just another addition to the Indiana Fever. She's the enforcer this team desperately needed. From the moment she stepped into the locker room, the message was clear. Caitlin Clark is no longer an easy target. For those who don't know, Howard is a 3-time WNBA champion, a former Defensive Player of the Year, and a game changer with the kind of toughness that reshapes a team's entire identity. She's not here for show. She's here to make sure the days of Clark getting bullied on the court are over.
Last season, with a minimum of 25 games played, Natasha Howard was one of just 13 players to average 18 points per game. She was one of 16 players to average 7 rebounds per game. And the list of players to average both 18 and 7 last year, short and elite. Asia Wilson, Brianna Stewart, Nafisa Collier, Brittany Griner, and yes, Natasha Howard.